Cousin Ernie, I heard you were back from visiting the McGillicuddies in New York City. You were always a good friend to me, so I'll call upon you for a favor now. My Annabelle has gone strangely quiet on me, and in the trying time that is these Puppet Master trials, I feel the fate of my victory lies in the hands of the knowledge that she is safely at home waiting for me. Please check in on her and let me know she is well. Hello and welcome to RotD Review of the Day, and today I am reviewing the 9th entry in the Puppet Master series, Puppet Master vs. Demonic Toys, made in 2004. Now, this movie is technically non-canonical, and I have some issues with that might be a bit controversial to Puppet Master fans. Primarily, I think the thing that might be... When I hear that something is non-canonical, that it has been excluded from the storyline, I think that can come from one of two places. It can either come from the actual technical issues regarding the storyline and the licensing and the fact that this may have been a one-off done by a different company, which is accurate, and I'll get into that. Or it could be that it was shunned by the fans, and I'm really not sure which one it is. If it was shunned by the fans, then this is going to be controversial because I actually really like this one. As far as the, different company, different storyline, basically what happened, as far as I understand it, is this was supposed to have been made after the second Puppet Master movie. There was a Demonic Toys franchise that came out around that time, and it was clear that they wanted to bring them together. They were both owned by Full Moon Entertainment, and it just never lined up. They weren't ready with the storyline, the script, and so forth. And the third Puppet Master movie script was in a more ready state, and they really needed to knock these out every year to get the VHS push rush out. And so that was put ahead to, Puppet Master 3 was put ahead of this one. And then it just never really lined up from there. It just kind of kept putting push back and in favor of other storylines. And the franchise had really stalled out around 1999. We did have Puppet Master The Legacy in 2003, but that was just a flashback episode. And as you've seen in my review, what I thought of that. Now, at this point, it seems like Sci-Fi, the channel, was wanting to come up with their next entry in blank versus blank, and they happened upon this and thought, well, why don't we actually do this, Puppet Master versus Demonic Toys? So they worked with Full Moon, and they actually did it, and they consider it to be non-canonical. And my problem with having a movie excluded from the storyline like this is the one thing that the Puppet Master series has not been is consistent. The elixir of life. In one movie, it's strictly a formula. In the next, it's a formula distilled using brain matter. In the next, it's simply magic and possibly an incantation. In the next, it's magic and an incantation and a ring that extracts some blood or fluid from the spinal cord of somebody. Just a drop will do. And it never really follows a strict set of rules and overarching storyline that is consistent. And in some of them, the souls have to be a willing participant of this, otherwise the elixir of life thing won't work. It just, if you're going to exclude a movie and you're going to say that this one is non-canonical because it doesn't match the storyline, you better have a solid storyline in your canon. That's all I'm saying. Your canon should be something that you are willing to hold up to scrutiny and protect. And so, I mean, as far as this one not being part of it, fine. Who am I to mess with history? So let's get into the actual review of the movie itself. Now, first of all, the one thing that I have been asking for, and I haven't been receiving in Puppet Master movies for a little while now, is fun. The last several were boring. Either that or toned down to the point of PG-13, no blood, nothingness. And we're not even going to talk about The Legacy anymore. The notion of fun and puppet kills and blood is back. And granted, this was a sci-fi original. It was made for TV. It's not going to have the most gruesome, gory, bloody, splatterfest thing on the screen. That's not necessarily what I was asking for. I was asking for puppet kills and fun. And this really did bring it. I made a point of, before I watched this one, to step back and watch the first Demonic Toys movie, which I had never seen. And that one was bloody, gory fun. The character of Baby Oopsie Doopsie was really, that was a bit much for me as far as bad taste kind of thing. But regardless, it was back in this one. And obviously more toned down than what they did in the first Demonic Toys movie, because, again, sci-fi original made for TV. But they really did have... it wasn't just fun for me to watch. You can tell that it was fun for them to make, and it really showed. It really came through, and I really have to appreciate that. I can tell that while they were rolling the cameras, they were smiling as much as I wound up smiling watching the movie. And when you're talking about, killer puppets going up against demonic toys, what... if you're not going to have fun, what's the point? I mentioned that before, and I really maintain that. So kudos to this film for bringing it back. We'll see what the next 4 movies do here, but let's get into the categories. Each category worth up to 25 points for a total possible score of 100 points. So the plot, I gave a 5 out of 25. It was pretty terrible as it was written on the page. It really wasn't that great. It followed the character of Robert Toulon and his daughter, Robert being the great-grandnephew of Andre Toulon, the Toulon that we've all known and loved throughout the series here. And he is attempting to recreate the family elixir and continue the family tradition of bringing these puppets to life. And in doing so, with his success, he is put in the crosshairs of a toy company and the evil woman who runs it, who is attempting a nefarious scheme of putting toys in the hands of all the children of the world before Christmas. And yes, this is a Christmas horror movie. I adore Christmas horror movies. And in doing so, putting the toys in the hands of all these children, that come Christmas morning, they would be inhabited by demonic entities all across the world, and it would cause panic and mayhem and death and destruction. And it was cheesy. It was purposefully cheesy, but the writing structure, I couldn't give a whole lot of leniency to. Every situation was set up in sole support of the next situation, and by that, okay, here's an example. Is Robert had the puppets in the case and was with his daughter, and they were ready to head out and join the fray. It was beginning to be a climactic moment. They were strapped and ready to go, and but you can tell the writers were thinking, well, we need to get the puppets and his daughter alone. We need to get him out of the picture so that they can be kidnapped. How do we do that? Oh, I know. Robert stands there and is like, wait, before we go, I have to pee. Off he goes. So I mean, that's what I mean. Every situation is only in service of leading up to the next one. Pretty shoddy writing, but it's a sci-fi original. What do you want? So 5 out of 25 for that. The intent, I gave a 23 out of 25. This is exactly what they meant to do, and it's exactly what they delivered. They wanted to make a franchise versus franchise, cheesy, ham-acted, schlockfest, sci-fi original, and they did it. They did it without reservation or hesitation, and I love them for it. I thought they did a very, very, very good job with what they intended to do. This is a perfect example of why I have the intent category in my scoring of horror movies, is whether or not it's good, whether or not the intentions of it were noble, whether or not the acting was good, whether or not the plot structure was good. What they set out to do, they did with flying colors, and I am going to give them as many points as possible for that. So 23 out of 25. Almost perfect, not quite. The acting, it was cheesy but enjoyable. I mean, again, they had fun, and it really showed. I mean, Robert Toulon is played by Corey Feldman. That's right. You have a Puppet Master versus Demonic Toys Christmas horror sci-fi original starring Corey Feldman. How much more fun can you get? So I mean, yeah, every scene was kind of chewed up and with a smile and a wink. Regardless, it really wasn't great. So 7 out of 25 for that. Cheesy but enjoyable. And the effects, they weren't terrible, but they weren't great. It was sci-fi original. It was pretty much exactly what you come to expect. It didn't have the Mega Python versus Lava Tarantula-esque CG badness, but the quality did show in the stop motion and the puppetry and so forth. It was very clear that most of them, as far as the Demonic Toys goes, were somebody's hands just up a rubber mask and blah, blah, blah. And the stop motion of the puppets was extraordinarily jittery. And the design of the puppets were a little bit off, too, and I can't quite understand why they did that. If they had the cooperation of Full Moon Entertainment and they were using these franchises, even if they weren't allowed the usage of the original dolls and they had to recreate them, I don't know why they couldn't have been a little bit more faithful. That was probably my biggest issue with this, is as somebody that has loved the Puppet Master movies and has fallen in love with the Six Shooter and Blade and Pinhead and so forth dolls, when you change the aesthetic of them and make them look a little bit more, bright, it was jarring as a fan. It was jarring. So that would be my big complaint, and I think that will be something that will ding the technical category as well. So 7 out of 25 for that, which brings us to a total score of 42 out of 100 points, the bulk of which being the intent, which I did love. So that should about do it for this review of Puppet Master vs. Demonic Toys. Up next, tomorrow, will be Puppet Master Axis of Evil, which will apparently start the Axis trilogy. I don't know what that means. We're going to find out together. And in the meantime, next time you want to watch a horror movie, first make sure that it's good and rotted.